or whatever image one it looks like. Oh no, sorry, it's the Discord voice. Actually, I'm getting an error.
Okay. Well, hey guys. This is our first ever Kingdom team review. So it's just going to be Valor, Ash, and I, and then Beagold's going to be in for the first couple. This is all fairly new, so take it with a grain of salt. We're all kind of figuring it out as we go. We have some good ideas after some scrimmage and a lot of spreadsheet scrims through the simulators God's put together. And then we'll be doing some review later on this week for the actual infographic. But as of right now, it's just going to be the team reviews under the team submissions channel in our Discord. First up, we have Papa E11. He's got a Torkoal, Lucario, Lapras, Flygon, Bastiodon, and Altaria. No moves declared, so we have to kind of maybe give a little bit of advice on movesets and some assumptions there. So, Ash, do you want to start?
Yeah, so Torkoal, always a solid choice. I thought we were going to talk about what we found, what works and what doesn't work, but we can jump into team submissions first. It's totally fine. As long as we hit that at the end, I'd like to do that. Starting off with Torkoal. Torkoal has been fairly irritating to beat as an opponent, or as someone who's faced one. It's quite beefy. Its charge moves take a little while, but Torkoal is so beefy that it's okay. He can survive and at least get one charge move off, if not two, depending on what you're facing it with. Overall, good synergy. We're seeing a lot of the same Pokemon in Kingdom Cup. It's not very diverse. It seems to really revolve around Lucario and Bastiodon. For that Lucario, you definitely want Power Up Punch and Shadow Ball. For for Lapras, you want the Water Gun, either Dragon Pulse or Ice Beam, and then Surf. For Flygon, Dragon Claw, and then either Stone Edge or Earthquake, depending on your team's synergy. Earthquake is definitely the preferred set because it's got it's the nuke option against a lot of stuff in this cup, and Dragon Claw is really nice for shield baiting. You don't actually need Earthquake to beat Bastiodon. Just the Mud Shot and Dragon Claw will do it alone, even shields. So that's something to remember. If you go the Stone Edge route, it gives you better coverage against Charizard and Lapras, which we're seeing a lot of. Bastiodon, always a solid choice. Smackdown. The preferred set is Flamethrower and Stone Edge. I find it really hard to sacrifice either of those for Flash Cannon, which can help you in the mirror, but there's plenty of other Bastiodon counters. I really would not recommend running Flash Cannon on Bastiodon, and then Altaria, obviously Dragon Pulse and Sky Attack.
So, what I'd say, just at a glance, this team might be a little bit weak to Altaria. Lapras is a good check, but not a hard counter like he was maybe in Tempest. You do rely a bit on Bastiodon to hard counter Altaria. There are situations where Lucario definitely puts a lot of hurt into Altaria and kind of neutralizes it as a threat. And then, of course, Flygon with a lot of energy charge, as we saw yesterday, can definitely also put a lot of hurt into Altaria. So that's something to keep in mind. Not necessarily to make any changes, just as just something to keep in mind. Or Steelix would counter, well, at least Altaria and Bastiodon there. I think this is a fairly well-balanced team. We're seeing a lot of this. Instead of Torkoal, we're seeing a lot of Blaziken, and pretty much this is a standard set. We'll see if it holds up in a few days.
Against this team, I'd probably run Altaria and Lucario, because Lucario takes out both of the Altaria counters, and then after you take out either Lapras or Bastiodon, Altaria can just run free in the cup. In the beginning, we really thought Altaria was going to be edged out just because of how poor the he matched up against a lot of the steel types, and especially Bastiodon. But
Right.
in any cup where Altaria is allowed, he's going to do well.
Yeah.
He's
And
just such
the other thing
a
is
solid pick.
Altaria, even though he might not be good against like the top tier stuff, he's good against the stuff that's good against the top tier stuff. So that's what makes it such a good pick, is because he's already well rounded, and he already survives in a meta where there's Azumarill, there's there's maybe not so many ice types running around, but there's definitely counters to it. And Bastiodon is in the freestyle meta, and you still see a lot of Altaria picks. So the fact that Altaria is able to survive with so many weaknesses, well, it just says it says a lot about that as a Pokemon. So
Right.
yeah. Torkoal is an interesting choice, and what's cool about Torkoal is that it can beat Lucario at a shield disadvantage. And it's the only fire type that's anywhere close to as bulky, having favorable PvP stats. Earthquake, it does take a little long to charge, but it's not as long as you'd think. I think it's comparable to, maybe it's not as short as Quagsire, because it's not Mudslap energy gain, but or Mudshot rather. But Fire Spin still it still does pretty well, and it does quite a nice bit of damage. So, and it can take the hits that it would otherwise, if it were like maybe a not as bulky of an option. So, yeah, this is a pretty good team as of right now. All right, so we got up next Tisarna. So, Tisarna submitted Bastiodon, Steelix. Steelix got Crunch and Earthquake, Dragon Tail. He's got a Legacy Lapras with Water Gun and Ice Beam, and Surf as well. Lucario, Charizard, and Altaria.
Oh, my dogs are gonna go nuts. You take.
Sure. So basically the same team as before, except now we have Steelix and Charizard as opposed to Torkoal and Flygon. So Steelix is an interesting pick because it gets to counter both Altaria and Bastiodon. And then you also have Lucario itself in there, which definitely counters Bastiodon. Bastiodon to counter, or to check Bastiodon. Lapras to check Bastiodon. So you really only have two things that are weak straight up to Bastiodon, which are Charizard and Altaria. It's not necessarily a disincentive to run Bastiodon at all against this team. It's just something that you're trying to bait, I suppose. The Charizard Flygon matchup is really interesting. We've run a lot of sims on that. We've run a lot of checks, and it really comes down to IVs, whether or not Flygon can get a third Dragon Claw in before Charizard nukes it.
Yeah, one Dragon Claw from Charizard takes out about half of its health. You really do not want to eat a Dragon Claw as Flygon, which is, I found the Charizard matchup to be another case for Stone Edge Flygon, but I need to grind out the dust and see which works better, either Stone Edge or Earthquake.
Okay.
Other than that, he's got all the appropriate movesets on the Pokemon.
I think so. Yeah, this
Good
is
team
an interesting
synergy.
team. I'm very, very interested in Steelix and running a Steelix, especially for this cup, just because it gets to counter both Altaria and Bastiodon, and not many things do that very well.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of synergy to be had between Altaria and Bastiodon, just because Bastiodon checks Altaria so hard, or counters Altaria so hard. And there might be some interesting synergy between Bastiodon and Altaria, and a ground type like Steelix. But let's see, Lapras. He's really relying on Lucario to deal with Lapras, right? If he had an enemy Lapras on the other team.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's another thing to
Lapras.
consider.
Yeah. Lapras and
Because-
Lucario might do a number on this team because the top row, Bastiodon, Steelix, and Lapras are weak to Lucario, and then he's only got Lucario for the mirror matchup. His only hard counter to Lucario is Charizard, and then I found Lucario often wins the Altaria matchup.
Yeah, he really does. If you can sneak in, well, if you have an energy gain on him, you already probably can sneak in a power up punch, boost that, and if you can sneak in a Shadow Ball, I mean,
That's good game right
that's gonna
there.
put a lot
Yeah.
of hurt. Yeah, I mean Altaria is bulky, but it's not that bulky.
Right. And regardless
and
of
it's
whether. Go for it.
Well, I'm just saying it's also an interesting balance between like tanky options and sort of glass cannon options, where you got Lucario and Charizard as glass cannons, Altarius and Steelix maybe somewhere in the middle, and then Lapras and Bastiodon are just so bulky.
Right.
So that's a cool balance to this team.
One of the lineups that I've seen that's been working really well is the combination of Lapras and Altaria.
I'd
Despite
imagine.
their fear of Lucario and Bastiodon being a hard counter, usually pairing them with Blaziken works really, really nicely because Blaziken can go through like a Lucario and like half of a Bastiodon, or an entire Bastiodon and then a little bit of Lucario. So
Yeah,
Blaziken's
Yeah,
done
like
better
that.
than he simulates.
yeah, like an Altaria Lapras would pair really well with, say, Lucario, or even to some extent Bastiodon, because they sort of have that sort of rock paper scissors relationship, even though Lapras and Bastiodon kind of check each other rather than strict counter. So that's
Right.
cool. Yeah, all right. So let's move on because we have a really interesting team with Lehos HWD. He's got an Aggron with Dragon Tail, Stone Edge, Heavy Slam. Lapras with Water Gun Surf. Kolava with Ember, Flamethrower, and I guess it's Dig. And then he's got Blaziken, Counter, Focus Blast, Blast Burn. Kingdra with Dragon Breath, Outrage, Hydro Pump. And a soon-to-be Flygon with Mudshot, Dragon Claw, Earthquake. Right off the bat, I mean, there's Aggron and Kolava. We honestly haven't looked into them that much. They don't sim very well, so these are definitely off-meta choices. I'm sure there's some interest in Kolava just because it has Dig. So, having ground-type moves on a fire is interesting. Maybe on the surface. The thing is, though, you really wouldn't want to pit Kolava against Bastiodon anyway, I think. Just because it takes super effective against that rock. And yeah, I just wouldn't see it as a great pick as far as fire types. I
The
think
thing
so
too is
far.
Ember's
go ahead.
not a good fast move. Like, it charges pretty slow, and it takes a long time to actually charge Dig. So I think that if you're going to go with a fire type that has like a ground move for some reason, that would probably not be the pick for that. Like, just Ember alone.
Right.
I
The
think
Ember
Alolan
and
Marowak.
Dig are both
Yeah, I
pretty
think
bad.
Alolan Marowak does a better job with the Bone Club. Even as horrible as Bone Club is, I think that the Hex Marowak does better, representing the fire type with a ground type move.
Yeah. hmm So I would just say, of the fire types, there's so many better options that I wouldn't waste it on Kolava. I noticed you already have Blaziken, so there is some possible legitimacy in running two fire types within a team. It's a little early to say whether that would, win you tournaments or not. But of the fire types so far, we're seeing Torkoal, Charizard, and Blaziken getting the best play. Unfortunately, Kolava and its evolution to Flosion, I just don't see them getting a lot of play here. At least not very good meta choices for this round.
Of all the fire types, the 4 that I like the best are, in no order, are Charizard, Alolan Marowak, Torkoal, and Blaziken.
Alolan Marowak would be 2. I guess I don't see it as much as a fire type, even though it would definitely be running fire type moves. I guess
Actually,
I see it as
the only
sort of a. Yeah, go ahead.
you're absolutely right. It is a fire type, but the typical moveset on it, or at least the one that I've been facing against Spark Spencer, he runs Hex, Shadow Ball, and Bone Club on it, and Bone Club is so spammy. It's really good at shield baiting because you really don't want to eat a Blast Burn, or not a Blast Burn, doesn't have Blast Burn. You really don't want to eat a Shadow Ball from anything, especially Alolan Marowak where it gets stabbed. So, and Bone Club being really spammy, it draws shields really well.
Yeah, the other thing about Marowak is that you can run Hex or you can run Rock Smash. I mean, Rock Smash is typically not a good move, but it is definitely serviceable here, which makes it just an extra bit of wild card. I think Hex makes it way better in the mirror. It gives it certain advantages in other matchups, but Rock Smash helps it. Yeah, for example, Hex helps with Bronzong a lot. But then Rock Smash helps a lot with Bastiodon. It helps a lot with, if you were to get stuck with Lapras, I imagine it would help. But it still would be pretty bad news for Marowak.
Yeah.
But there were some matchups that Rock Smash helped.
Yeah. I mean, there's a case for both. And I know that we pretty much shut down Hex in the beginning, but I'm coming to really like Hex. I know Spark Spencer is going to change his Hex Marowak to Rock Smash to just see how it does. But the energy gain from, like I said earlier, the Bone Club spam is real. And then my last suggestion for this team is I really think there's better solution or options than Aggron. Like if you're going for a budget Bastiodon, I think that what's it, Larion? Yeah, Larion is a pretty decent option for a budget Bastiodon over Aggron.
Just don't even run a Rock Seal type.
Right.
Bulk up in other areas. You don't have Altaria there. I mean, Altaria is still a solid choice, and it's not like you don't have checks for what Lucario could do or what Bastiodon could do. So, I mean, I would say of the two, Bastiodon or Lucario, Bastiodon is much more essential. Lucario is much more essential. So if you can get that before the cup starts, that's great. But Bastiodon is not necessarily one that you absolutely need, in my opinion.
Right. And then one of the things that I thought that you would absolutely need at the beginning is Lucario. And while he is really rampant in this cup, Blaziken's stats are actually fairly comparable to Lucario. The stat distribution is fairly similar. Blaziken is very high on attack. Not quite as high as Lucario. I believe he's about 10 points under. Lucario's back at about 150. Blaziken has about 140, 143-ish. Almost as glassy as Lucario himself, but Blaziken certainly packs quite a punch with the counter. And then my suggestion for his Blaziken, counter and Focus Blast is nice. Believe that BV, he doesn't know Blast Burn. That's Brave Bird. I think you said Blast Burn earlier in the stream. But Brave Bird is nice.
I'm sorry. Yeah, Brave Bird.
Yeah, it's BB.
Yeah.
So it's really nice against the other fire types in this cup, and you really don't need Stone Edge, like a lot of people say. The Brave Bird does just fine.
Yeah.
And I don't have any experience with the Dragon Breath Kingdra, but I do know that Water Gun Kingdra has been fairly irritating to deal with, especially with all of the fire types. And then the steel types take neutral from Water Gun as opposed to Dragon Breath.
Yeah. Kingdra's pretty solid, especially if you can save a shield for the end. Kingdra reliably beats almost everything, if not everything. So
yeah, Kingdra with the shield advantage at the very end, does. Someone made a post on the Silverina Reddit, or the Silverina on Reddit, and Kingdra with a shield advantage doesn't lose to like anything. So if you can somehow work that out in your match, that could work out really well for you.
Here's another
But then
option
again,
for that
if you have a
aggron.
shield advantage, oh yeah,
I was just thinking, well, the shield advantage is a good point, right? But you're rarely ever going to be winning so handily that you have a full health Kingdra at the end, and he only has one option left, and you have a shield, right? At that point, you are already kind of winning anyway, so that's a point there. But the aggron, if you're worried about an Altaria counter, consider Melmetal. He's a good option, and he also happens to be Bastion. So there's that.
yeah.
You
So
want
I'd
to
say,
move on to the next one?
yeah, let's go on.
Sure. Okay.
So he's good.
So we have.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, go ahead. Oh, okay. So McMahon's 59 has Melmetal, which we just mentioned, a Flygon, Empoleon, Dragonair, Blaziken, and Alolan Marowak. I don't think he lists moves, but he's got some kind of naming convention there. It looks like Melmetal has double electric and what do you think that is? It looks like a bell.
That's
Looks like a
Rock Slide.
gravestone.
Stone.
Oh, okay.
Oh, so he's running Stone Edge on Melmetal and on Flygon. That makes sense. And then he's running Waterfall, Flash Cannon, and Blizzard on Empoleon, I guess. And then he's running
Dragon
maybe
Breath
Dragon
and
Breath,
Aqua Tail.
And then he's running Counter, Focus Blast, Brave Bird. And then he's running Hex, Shadow Ball, probably Bone Club on Alolan Marowak. I
Right.
think the first thing that's glaring is Stone Edge on Flygon. I don't think you gain that much. You really do kind of need Earthquake and Dragon Claw in this cup for Flygon to be effective. Would you agree?
I don't know. Stone Edge, with the rise of what we've seen, like Lapras, and I mean Dragonclaw is good enough for Altaria, but I don't know. I believe honestly, there's a case for both, especially with the rise of Lapras and Charizard. I believe that Stone Edge Flygon
Well, Stone Edge
has its
Earthquake,
purposes. Oh,
but
Stone
not
Edge
Stone
Earthquake
Edge Dragon Claw.
and sacrificing the Dragonclaw.
Okay, so you are saying Dragon Claw and Stone Edge? Is that what you're saying?
I thought
you would
that's right.
argue
Isn't
for
that
one?
isn't that what he has?
That's what he has. Yeah.
I mean, I believe
Here's
there's
the
a case
problem.
for it.
Yeah. I think there's a better case for Stone Edge Earthquake than
Yes,
there is
yeah,
for
I agree.
Dragon Claw Stone Edge.
I'd agree with that.
Just because
Yeah, absolutely.
the biggest point to running Flygon with Earthquake is that you can counter Bastiodon, you can pretty much one-shot Lucario, I think.
You can
you
one-shot
have-
Lucario with any charge move that's stronger than Dragonclaw or Bone Club.
Yeah. So you have recourse against the fire types, even though it might not be a strict counter to them. Yeah, I guess Stone Edge does help with Lapras, but it's not a matchup you want to be in anyway.
Right.
And then against the ground types, I can't imagine Stone Edge would help. Like a Alolan Dugtrio, you would definitely want Earthquake for that.
Right,
So I
because
just see
Steel
Earthquake as being so
resists
necessary.
Rock.
And Dragon Claw is nice against Altaria, but it's also just really nice as just being able to do that one shield bait before Flygon inevitably faints, which it tends to do with how unbulky it is. What else would you say about, for example, Empoleon and Dragonair?
So Empoleon is one of the things that's been gaining a lot of traction in the chat that I've seen. before we jump onto Apollyon, I just simmed Lapras against Flygon, and Flygon only wins if he burns 2 shields, the Stone Edge Flygon. So, yeah, I guess that's another case for Earthquake. But Empoleon, I've seen gaining a lot of heat in the chat. Godsey, I know you're on. I don't know if you have a mic or not. You could probably elaborate better on Empoleon. But Empoleon, I know, is a decent. Is a decent Flygon counter. I don't have any experience with playing with Empoleon myself. Melmetal makes for a decent budget Bastiodon. He kind of has the same role. He just loses out to Bastiodon because Bastiodon is Flamethrower. And then Dragonair.
Someone corrected. I think I just I misspoke. I said Stone Edge on Melmetal. I meant to say Rock Slide. Someone Silicaton corrected me. So
nice.
Thanks for that.
Dragonair, Aqua Tail is good. That's the moveset you want, is Dragon Breath Aqua Tail. I would also throw Wrap on it, just in case, for whatever reason, that water might be resisted, or Dragon Pulse even, for the Kingdra matchup. But I found that between...
Sorry.
Wrap is just very, very spammy compared to Dragon Pulse, so I would definitely run that over Dragon Pulse. And from the videos that I've seen of Dragonair, he... and facing Dragonair. Dragonair and Lapras do better against Bastiodon than the Sims would suggest. They certainly take a significant portion of its health away. And leave it limping for your next Pokemon to clean up if they don't win. In some cases, like Lapras and Dragonair, with 1 shield each and equal health, equal energy, they beat Bastiodon, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, the other thing about
overall
Empoleon specifically, with 1 shield, it gets to just, pretty much destroy Charizard. It ranks pretty high in its counter against Charizard.
Yeah. Because Charizard's so glassy, it definitely does not want to take an Aqua Tail.
Yeah, I think the appeal with Empoleon and the reason why he just edged into the meta was because he basically counters Bastiodon. It's not like a strong counter, but he does counter it. And then he also, deals with Blaziken barely, but he does deal with it. He deals with Charizard.
Despite being weak to counter?
Yeah, it's barely, right? It's not like it's any close, but he does get to beat it.
The Blaziken versus Empoleon match is pretty hilarious. Like neither of them get to shield or get to a charge, and they're both like at the edge of death.
Right. Now is it that Empoleon has a charge move ready to go after that match?
I'm not sure off the top of my head, but my guess is like not right away, only because its charge moves are pretty slow, and Waterfall doesn't really have.
Waterfall is horrible energy gain.
It doesn't. Yeah, exactly. So my guess is no, but it might be not too far off.
Yeah, but not too far off. It's not good enough when you're.
Yeah, I was gonna say, but yeah, exactly. It has 8 health, so like a lot of the whatever they bring in next is probably gonna kill it in like 1 attack or 2.
Yeah.
Gotsy, is he on?
Yeah, I'm on.
What do you have to say about Empoleon? I know you've been on the chat a lot today, and Empoleon got a lot of heat today, but I wasn't around for it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking to me.
Yeah, I am talking to you. Gotsy, right?
No, you're reviewing my team right now.
Oh. Have you played with Empoleon a lot? Like, have you done a lot of Kingdom Cup matches?
No.
Well,
I'm just honestly curious how he performs.
About Empoleon and why he's kind of rising up a little bit is because he does all the stuff that we mentioned, and he beats Bronzong.
He beats Bronzong?
Yeah, he gets to beat Bronzong.
Because that's still resist the psychic.
Exactly. Tipping. And he double resists all of Bronzong's common charge. Well, yeah, But he double resists steel, so that's nice too. So he basically gets to farm Bronzong, I guess. And, that would not sound like a big deal, but I guess with his scattered matchups, he does kind of edge himself into an interesting niche.
Yeah, he might even. It seems like he's filling that Bronzong role fairly well, because Bronzong is mostly there to counter Blaziken, and has pretty decent matchups. Can edge out Altaria and can edge out Lapras. But if Empoleon's doing that, I don't know. Might be interesting. I need to play around with Empoleon a bit.
Empoleon loses to Lapras, though.
Empoleon loses to Lapras.
And
With Bronzong,
the Dragons too, I think.
Empoleon loses to the Dragons?
Oh yeah, big time. Yeah, he
Which
loses
dragons?
to Altaria. He loses to Kingdra, like pretty
Who?
hard to Kingdra. Empoleon.
They resist waterfalls.
I thought we just discussed how he beat Altaria.
Not Altaria. He beats Bastiodon. And he
Who?
barely beats Blaziken, and he beats Torkoal, and he beats Bronzong. And he beats Steelix, which is cool. He beats Charizard with one shield. In some cases, if he does the correct baiting, he beats Flygon pretty nicely. But what's weird about him as a steel type is that he loses to Altaria, Kingdra, and Dragonair, and that's mainly because Waterfall kind of is not a great move. So
Right. And it's resisted by Dragon.
See,
Yeah,
I
and
think
it's double resisted by Kingdra.
I think in my head, like Empoleon is really only good if Waterfall is super effective. Otherwise, because it doesn't really get charges off. I don't think the only time it wins with a charge move is like against Blaziken with no. Bastiodon with no shields. Other than that, it basically just wins from Waterfall being crazy damage.
Or neutral, and he resists the other guy. So that's the other.
Yeah.
If he comes in like Bronzong's case, Bronzong he's resisting Bronzong, but he's at least hitting it neutral. So that's good enough.
Yeah, I would kind of almost put Bronzong in the same sort of category as Vince, in the sense of like having really hard fast moves and really slow charge moves.
Yeah. I agree.
They do
I think
different
Bronzong
things.
has slightly better matchups though, but
Yeah, agreed with that.
I
The
think-
fact that it can beat Blaziken pretty consistently is nice for Bronzong.
So,
I think
looking at this
Empoleon-
team... Sorry, go for it.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think Empoleon, it's kind of interesting comparing it to Hex, AWAC too, because both of them sort of came up as soon as, like, following Bronze's rise in prevalence. And so I think both of those as sort of counters to Bronzong sort of somewhat rely on how common Bronzong is and how featured it is within the meta. Although the slight difference is AWAC being a better counter to Luke and Empoleon being a better counter to Bastiodon.
Yeah, it's
Interesting.
I think if you're gonna build a team, you're probably not gonna build it around Empoleon or Bronzong. You're just gonna build your team and then say, "Oh, here's what I'm weak to. I happen to be weak to Bastiodon and Blaziken. So what can I use? Oh, well, there's Empoleon. I can't use Bronzong because Bastiodon will wreck it. So."
As far as team composition goes, I think that he's fairly weak to Altaria. Altaria beats Flygon, Altaria beats Empoleon, as you said earlier. Altaria beats Dragonair, Altaria beats Blaziken, and Altaria beats Alolan Marowak. So Altaria, like, plus Lucario or Bastiodon to take care of, or shoot, even like Lucario, Bastiodon, Altaria would like take care of this team fairly easily. Because both Lucario and Bastiodon counter your only Altaria counter, which is Melmetal. So it's like I don't know what to suggest though to make your team less weak to that composition.
It's a little too soon, I'd say, to say straight up drop this guy and add this other one.
Right.
Mainly because we don't really have knowledge on what everybody has. He says Bastiodon won't make it on the team since he doesn't have the rare candy for it.
Right.
He is walking a Lucario, so that's cool. I'd definitely swap Lucario for maybe one of these off meta choices. I wouldn't drop Blaziken just because they both have counter. I think they're both solid picks. One interesting thing about Dragonair is that he flips the match. He's very comparable to Altaria, but he flips the matchup with Bastiodon and Lucario. So while Altaria, counters or checks Lucario and is hard countered by Bastiodon, Dragonair is checked by Lucario and checks Bastiodon. So it's a little bit of an inverse relationship there. Everything else is pretty similar. In fact, Dragonair performs a little bit worse generally than Altaria does. But the Dragon Breath Aqua Tail spam combo is pretty cool. I don't know that he's that weak to... whether he's weak to Lucario or Bastiodon in this team. Well, I would say he's more resistant to Bastiodon, right? So he would prefer an Altaria in that Dragonair slot.
Right. He's got plenty of Bastiodon counters.
As a matter of fact,
It's just that-
4. Yeah. Because doesn't Empoleon beat Bastiodon, we said?
Flash can hits neutral, waterfall. I'd have to look it up. I can do this simulation in 2 seconds.
Yeah, so he's got Empoleon. Yes, beats Bastiodon all scenarios. Barely in shields up, but it still beats it. So, of that team, Melmetal beats Bastiodon. Flygon does too, if it's got the right moves. So does Empoleon, so does Dragonair, so does Blaziken. So I'd say a solid swap for you would be Altaria for Dragonair. And
In the one shield situation, he actually eats a flamethrower because Bastiodon gets 2 flamethrowers off. However, Bastiodon shields his flash cannon and Empoleon kills it with just waterfall damage, which I find really interesting.
So I would say definitely, if you can, swap Dragonair for Altaria, and since you're already walking a Lucario, I think you can definitely make space for Lucario in one of these slots. So, which one it is, I can't tell you that right now, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah. Is this McMahon?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Any questions for us?
No, it just I like D6, and I know a lot of people are playing Bastiodon, so I want to counter that, and I think Altaria will be last seen this cup.
You think so?
I don't know yet.
Yeah.
As a Bastiodon?
I don't know. I think everyone is so focused on Lucario and Bastiodon that they aren't picking Altaria.
Yeah.
My
it's
reasoning behind...
possible, but once those infographics roll out and people start realizing it, so like here's the deal, right? Altaria beats Flygon, Alolan Dugtrio, so he beats the ground types. He also beats Lucario, and he beats all the fire types. Nothing else can do that. So that's
Lucario's matchup
pretty
is
solid.
in the air, but
I mean, it's still a check in favor of Altaria, so if you want to call it something similar to the Skarmory-Altaria relationship in Tempest, that's fair.
Yeah.
But it's still in favor of
True.
Altaria. It's not like I would switch in a Lucario to Altaria by any means.
right, yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, for perspective, I was just toying around with the idea of just like, what if I just tripled up on fire, right? And sure enough, Ash brought in his Altaria lead, and one Altaria was enough to beat every single one. Actually, Torkoal barely beat Altaria with like 5 HP.
Yeah.
But so that's how powerful Altaria is.
And this is also a pretty expensive cup, so a lot of the more casual players that you run into, they're going to be trying to like be recycling Pokemon, like especially Altaria, because it's so dang cheap. It's only 10k for that second charge move. It doesn't have to be maxed out. It's like what, like level 30 or level 27 or something for it to be useful. It doesn't require a lot of investment, and because it's so cheap and so widely available, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, I think that Altaria in any cup where it's allowed is going to be rampant and prevalent, no matter what. Even in a cup where a lot of the things are gunning for Altaria.
Yeah, but I could respect, just choosing not to run Altaria, just to either handicap yourself or just try different things. Like, that's respectable, and Dragonair is a good pick. But I guess the reason why we're deciding we recommend a swap it is because you're already so strong to Bastiodon, and Altaria itself is kind of an opening for you. But
yeah, 5 out of the 6. So,
all right,
cool.
That's all I got for you.
Thank you very much.
Next team we have, yeah, no problem. Next team we have is actually the last one for the night. We have Silicatung. He posted Lucario, Lapras, Steelix, Blaziken, Flygon, and Altaria. So he says he's guessing maybe replace Steelix with Melmetal, maybe not.
I definitely would not replace Steelix with Melmetal.
I wouldn't either.
Yeah, because Steelix can beat Bastiodon, and Steelix can also beat some of the things that Bastiodon beats, like it's a soft counter to Altaria, I believe. Yes? No?
Steelix counters Altaria, and so does Melmetal, but well, actually they have pretty similar relationship,
right,
because Lucario also counters Melmetal and Steelix. Lapras checks Melmetal and Steelix as well. Huh, that's a little bit interesting. I hadn't really noticed that relationship.
Yeah,
I think
the only
Steelix
reason
is just still a little bit better though.
Yeah. So as team composition, first 3 are weak to Lucario. Second 3 are decent checks to Lucario. Especially Blaziken. I'd say it's fairly well rounded.
I'm just looking at the matchups between the comparison between Melmetal and Steelix, and I guess one saving grace that Steelix has is Earthquake, versus Melmetal doesn't really have any recourse against fire types at all. So that was one of the appeals of Earthquake on Steelix. But Melmetal is an interesting choice for sure. And I don't think a lot of people are going to be as prepared for Melmetal as they might be with Steelix, to be honest.
I have a double move Melmetal, and I benched it pretty quick.
Yeah.
I just didn't have much. I just didn't have much luck with it. But maybe I'll try it out again.
Right. Let's see. I would say Blaziken and Lucario have similar roles here. The common threats, I guess, are Bastiodon and Lucario. Of his team, he's got Blaziken, Altaria, and that's it for Lucario, right? Because Flygon is kind of like a check. So Lapras loses, Steelix loses, so he's really only got Blaziken and Altaria and Lucario itself against Lucario. Then Bastiodon is hard countered by Flygon, hard countered by Lucario, countered by Steelix, and checked by Lapras. So that's, and also Blaziken, if I didn't mention that.
This team
So
is
pretty much
fairly
everything
strong
in his
against
team.
Bastiodon.
Yeah, definitely.
So I wouldn't be afraid to run that Altaria if I were
Not
you.
at all. Yeah. Yep. That's a pretty good team. Yeah. I wonder if that Lapras is Legacy or not. Is Lickitung in? He normally joins in.
Yeah, it's
He's on.
Water Gun Ice Beam, sir.
Awesome.
Water Gun Ice Beam. Yeah.
Answer.
So, what about against Lapras itself?
Ooh.
You really
point.
only have Lucario and well, Lucario, right?
Yeah. I mean, Blaziken can certainly put a dent in it, and if
Yeah.
yeah, that's about it.
Lucario's your own. Yeah. It's not to say that won't be common, because Lapras is only, I mean, the only reliable counters to Lapras are Lucario and Abomasnow, and Abomasnow is not really meta here. So, you know, you just don't want to be stuck in a switch-in with Lucario and Lapras if you're the Lapras user. You might want to have a check to Lapras. I'm seeing more and more appeal to Dragon Pulse Lapras over Ice Beam, just because Dragon Pulse gives that edge over enemy Lapras that Ice Beam wouldn't give you.
And it's
So-
nice against Kingdra as well.
Yeah. Whereas Ice Beam Lapras, well, I guess the weakness that you gain with Dragon Pulse on Lapras is something like Alolan Executor and Dragonair. And I just, they're normally checked with other things, and I don't see Alolan Executor really being a threat ever. So,
And with
I think-
Water Gun being the primary move, it's the energy gain isn't great. Dragon Pulse takes a long time. So one of the matchups you kind of end up sacrificing is that Altaria matchup. I was playing Spark Spencer just before the stream, and my Altaria just absolutely... I think it won the matchup, honestly. And I ate the Dragon Pulse, and I think I shielded the Surf.
So that's if they
Either
know
way, it
you
either
have
won the
Dragon
matchup
Pulse,
or
right?
took the what?
That's if they know you have Dragon Pulse, right? Because if they assume you have Ice Beam
Right.
or Blizzard or something, well, Blizzard would take so long to charge. Water Gun takes forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what this is
But
one
the
of
Dragon
the
Pulse
reasons
didn't
why-
come out.
Yeah, that's just one of the reasons why I
The
don't
Dragon Pulse.
consider Lapras a counter to Altaria in this cup, just because of Water Gun. It skews the matchups a little bit, and it just depends on shield usage, energy gain. You know, there's very few situations where a Bastiodon is going to lose against an Altaria, but there's a lot more situations where Altaria might be able to edge out a win against Lapras. So,
Right.
because of Water Gun. So. But it's an overall pretty good team. A little soon to say, you know, what cores will be good against it. We'll be interested to see what you post maybe a week from now, see if you change anything.
All right, we got one last
Well,
team.
Yeah, one more guy posted, and then this is actually going to be the last one because we're nearing the hour. So he's got Altaria, Steelix, Lucario, Lapras, Charizard, and Bastiodon. Is that the first Bastiodon of the night? No, it isn't. So Charizard is an interesting pick. I think the interesting thing about the Blaziken Charizard relationship is that Charizard does have an interesting matchup where if he's leading with Lucario, he doesn't need correct me if I'm wrong, he doesn't need charge moves, and you have a blast burn at the end.
Yeah.
So you could just nuke something with blast burn if they don't shield, or force them to shield. And you also have the option to do a Dragon Claw if you need to.
You do have to watch out for the Shadow Ball coming out of Lucario, because Lucario gets it when he's in the red.
Yeah.
So if Lucario and Charizard match up equal energy, I mean, regardless if Lucario gets matched up against Charizard, it's typically going to be a winning match for Charizard. But if Lucario gets that Shadow Ball off, it will one-shot Charizard just because he's so fragile.
Yeah.
Shadow
This really
Ball
is a-
one-shots Charizard?
Shadow Ball?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, dang.
Yeah.
Yeah. It only it comes out. Lucario's like typically in the late yellow or in the red when the Shadow Ball is finally charged. If a charge move is coming at you like way early, while Lucario is still in the green, you know it's Power Punch. I wouldn't shield it.
Yeah.
And you can just continue on with the fire spins. But if the charge move is coming out pretty late, I would watch out for that Shadow Ball.
Yeah.
But it's not like he can. It's not like he can shield bait. He doesn't have enough time or health to shield bait you with Power Punch and then hits you with Shadow Ball. It's definitely Charizard wins the match as long as he burns his shield to protect himself from Shadow Ball.
I don't have a second move on Charizard.
And as bad as I
yet
hated
either.
Charizard during the last cup, I really, really liked Charizard in this cup.
Yeah.
He does
I
well
agree.
against Blaziken. He does well against other fire types. And he does well against Lucario. And then even if he gets stuck against like Lapras or
Bastiodon.
Altera, yeah, well, against Bastiodon, you're just absolutely toast. But if you have a Blast Burn
But
against
even-
Bastiodon,
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
you'd have to have an energy gain. Yeah, you have to have an energy gain, but it still chunks about like 40% of Bastiodon's health.
Yeah, so
Um,
it's not even close to a win. But if you can either get a shield off or chunk its health after beating something else, that's pretty
Yeah.
neat. What were you saying about another charge move?
Oh, yeah. I don't have a second charge move on Charizard or my Lapras quite yet, and I don't know which Lapras to use. I have a Ice Shard, Dragon Pulse, Surf Lapras, and then I have a Water Gun, Ice Beam Lapras.
So first question, I would answer. Well, I'll answer the second question first. The Lapras, I would definitely use, if you can afford it, give a second move to the Ice Beam Lapras and use Water Gun Ice Beam Lapras. He's an excellent
Okay.
choice. Don't use the Ice Shard.
Yeah.
It's just not worth it in this cup.
I have an Ice Shard, Dragon Pulse, Surf Lapras, and I'm switching over to Water Gun, Ice Beam, Surf for this cup. So I'm having to double move yet another Lapras.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But that's
If
certainly a
you're
choice I
under
would make.
budget constraints, if you're under budget constraints and you can't like afford to give a second move to Lapras, just run Water Gun Surf. He's what you're going to be using 99% of the time anyway. And if you're
Yeah.
able, and if you just overcharge Surf in battle, you can definitely bluff it to your opponents and make them think that you have Ice Beam or Dragon Pulse.
Yeah.
Just overcharge Surf before spamming it. So
And then second move on Charizard should be Dragon Claw.
Yeah. yeah, that's
Is
just
that
really
essential, do you think?
Absolutely.
It's only 10k. Yeah, it's
Oh,
absolutely
really?
essential too. Yeah, it's only 10,000 Stardust and 10 candy.
I can get that right now then.
Yep.
Yeah.
You sure can.
Alright.
it's not that
Yeah.
difficult.
Just make
Just
sure you
got
don't take Blast Burn off. But Dragon Claw is an excellent move. With Charizard, he's so frail that you just don't want to be wasting any of that precious energy. So if he's about to
Yeah.
die and you can get a Dragon Claw off, that'll be good. If you can fake out a Dragon Claw, get a shield off, then you use Blast Burn, that'll be good too.
This is a really interesting cup. I just want to put a cap on the whole thing and talk about specific picks and stuff. I just want to say there's a really interesting cup between like it's like this weird mix of like extreme bulk and extreme glass cannons. And it's the matches that I've played are like really, really, really quick. In Tempest, there was a lot of bulk. Like Lantern had a lot of bulk. Trophius was a flying tank. Altaria, another. And it's got some I put it up there on the bulky scale. Lapras is an absolute chonk monster. But in this cup, there's Lucario to counter a lot of those bulky monsters because his attack is so high. It's just something that I've seen is it's not even really much to take away from this, but it's just interesting to see glass cannons and extreme bulk butting heads.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And the relationships are not cookie cutter. For anybody listening, I'm sure you guys, if you're listening to this one, you're looking information up on, Silph Arena, and there's a lot of people doing some, looking for some good information. But there's a tendency to oversimplify things. And I've seen, for example, putting, Steelix in the ground category, but you've seen that Steelix does not fit in that category at all because he's running Dragon Tail. Yeah, he's got Earthquake, but then he's also got Crunch. So he's got totally different moves. He's got different things that he's countering. He counters Altaria. Ground types don't counter Altaria. He's countered by Lucario. Ground types are sort of checked, with Lucario. It's not necessarily a hard counter relationship, unless maybe Alolan Dugtrio.
Alolan Dugtrio is better for Bastiodon. Alolan Dugtrio loses to Lucario pretty dang quick, actually, because of his steel typing.
Yeah, so there's that, and you'd think maybe I don't know, Altaria and Dragonair have similar relationship, but Kingdra actually has a more akin to Lapras in its relationship. Even though it's got the dragon typing, it's mainly running water, and even with Dragon Breath, it has very similar matchups to Lapras.
Right.
And then you got the fire types. You have Blaziken running counter, but he still has very similar matchups to the other fire types, with some differences in things like Bastiodon, for example. It's not as cookie cutter as, say, Tempest was. Certainly not Boulder. I would say it's not as nuanced as Twilight. Twilight's kind of the gold standard here, but there's a lot of very interesting matchups and relationships between the different typings.
Yeah, and especially because a lot of these Pokemon are so attack weighted and lack bulk. Like you said, that leaves a lot of room for anything with an energy gain can flip matchups, and it gets really, really weird. Kingdom Cup is very, very, very fast paced. A lot of switching. You have to think on your feet, and you can't miss switch windows. You've got to be very quick at switching. If you have a Lucario and you see your opponent stop attacking, it's almost like you have to auto switch, or your Lucario is dead. Or say you have a Lapras, if you see your opponent pause even for a second, and they bring out the Lucario, I mean or against Bastiodon, it just nukes it so quick with counter. You have to be very, very, very quick with your switches. And then something that I've seen is because I'm typically so automatic with my switches. A lot of people have thrown in something that would actually be say I'm using Bastiodon, and I know they have a Lucario in the back. They'll actually throw in a Charizard or something that's weak to Bastiodon, because they know that I'll switch out so quickly because I don't want Bastiodon to lose health, that I accidentally throw myself in a really stupid matchup. So it's kind of you got to watch out for that risk reward of auto switching in this cup,
or even just switching to a safe switch. So I don't know what that would be right now, but
Altaria is typically a good safe switch.
Perhaps, depending on what you're switching away from, right? But
if your opponent doesn't have a Bastiodon, I'd say it's a better safe switch.
For sure. And although Bastiodon is a really good choice, you're already seeing in the teams that we displayed, people are bringing hard counters to Bastiodon. So I wouldn't be shocked if in some matches you're not going to be using Bastiodon at all, because what are you going to do when the guy brings 5 counters to it, right? But you get to exploit that with bringing it something else, I don't know, Bronzong or Lucario, and be able to counter them. So It's an interesting cup. I don't like the fact that Bastiodon and Lucario are so meta and they're so hard to get. Lucario, I mean, unless you were one of the lucky guys that got that 0.7% hatch rate, or you were able to trade it with someone, it is pretty hard to acquire a Lucario. It's not expensive to power up or really evolve for that matter. He's only 50 candy, and then you get the 25 candy unless you power it or you evolve it before giving it a second move, like Valor did. But
yeah, I messed up.
yeah, and then Bastiodon is just so hard to find Shieldon. They're very rare, and then it's very expensive to power them up all the way to like 39.5 or 40. So I'm not a big fan of that. There's some very expensive choices here. But I am a fan of how hard countered some of those two are, and still be able to choose stuff that's really good against the rest of the meta.
Right. There is a lot of open room for anti-meta picks here.
Yeah.
I just feel that they get.
Yeah. So far on my radar, as far as stuff that's like not super obvious, I'd say Torkoal is up there. There's getting a lot of love from with Blaziken and Charizard, but I think Torkoal is a really good pick. Of course, it is a regional, so not everybody's going to have access to that. But that might be just another layer of, element of surprise if you happen to have a Torkoal or someone that can trade it to you, and your local meta doesn't have Torkoal, so that might be an interesting choice. Steelix,
Chicago
like
GoFest had it, so if you can find somebody that went to that.
Yeah. Steelix is also a really good choice, and he's got some very strange matchups, and so does Bronzong. So I'm really liking those three. And then of course you have the standard top meta choices, but those three are definitely piqued my interest, and I'll be using them a lot in scrims.
Yep.
Well, all right. We'll close this out. We'll be doing more of these as the month unfolds. Of course, we'll get better information, and it's possible we look back at this and we just roast each other for giving bad information. But so far it's been fun. I'm very much looking forward to breaking this down into an infographic and sharing it with the wider community. So I do often post that as new drafts come out in the Kingdom Team discussion channel. So if you want to participate in that, roast me and give me advice. The latest one should be in the pinned messages. So I just edit that as I go, and then hopefully this week, if not early next week, I'll have the final draft posted with a good write-up for the Self Arena.
Yeah. Also, if you want to stay tuned after the live stream, I'm going to live stream myself and AJ and potentially Spark Spencer and a couple others. Mostly AJ going up against them and showing you all the Kingdom Cup Pokemon that we've been using, and so you can get a feel for them, or like look how they do actually, like how they actually perform as opposed to the simulations. So you yourself can decide what you want to power up and what you don't want to power up, just based on watching us battle it out.
Is that going to be on this channel still?
So the way that the audio works, I can't talk to AJ or y'all during it. Like I can't hear anything. But y'all can hear me. You can hear me if you like watch the YouTube channel. It'll be through YouTube.
No, it's not the same channel. It's going to be a different one.
Right. So so Balash, you can post your link in the Discord. But thanks to AJ Pilot and Balash for today's hosting today's stream. We're gonna go give Pocket Monster Max a raid. So if anyone here is on Discord and not on Twitch, make sure to go drop a follow there. And if you're on Twitch, make sure to click on Discord link and join us on our discussion and join tournaments there. And anything else you want to say?
Nope.
No.
Let's wrap it up.
Wrap it up. Thanks
Yeah,
for joining, guys.
looking forward to it.
Thanks, boys.
All right.
Yeah,
I got tagged 5 times during
I mean,
that whole discussion.